Hey, welcome back. You're in the C Space Studio here at CES 2023. We are sponsored by Salesforce. We are thrilled to be here. My name is James Kotecki, and I'm joined by Shelley Zalis, founder and CEO, Female Quotient. Welcome back to the C Space Studio.
I always love coming back and chatting with you.
We talked to you last year. I remember it well, but for those who didn't catch that conversation, can you quickly define what the Female Quotient is and what you're doing here at CES?
At Female Quotient, we're in the business of equality, and it's all about changing the equation and closing the gender gap.
So how are you doing that?
We create spaces at big industry conferences to have conscious leaders come and talk about how we are going to create solutions for change. And you know, what's really remarkable is the World Economic Forum just came out with a report, and they said it'll take 132 years to close the gender gap. We can close it in 5. Why are we waiting so long?
When you say 5 years, is that a number that you've specifically chosen or based on some kind of metrics or plan to kind of do that? Where 5 years come from?
I just think 5 years is a long enough period of time to accomplish enough and a short enough period of time to make things happen.
This is the Equality Lounge, right? This is the Equality Lounge here at CES and other spots. What are some of the programs and what kind of goes on in the Equality Lounge?
Well, first, it's a safe space for women to come and meet one another, and it's also a space to have real conscious conversations about what we're going to do, activations, actions, not just conversation, but what solutions are we going to come up with to really close the gaps. So every half an hour, there's really important conversations going on up there.
That's great. And what kind of solutions, because I think obviously CES is a place where people are talking about solutions. Many people here may have good intentions with their ideas to close the gender gap, but what practical solutions are kind of bubbling up in these conversations that you want to highlight here?
Well, what's really interesting is when you think about the UN just talked about 2030, the future is female, and that all of these jobs will be filled with women. Well, these jobs are tech jobs.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to create the systemic solutions for change, we're losing women to technology. Women are not entering technology fields. So one of the things that we're talking about is how do we create the programs to put women in tech?
Yeah.
And one of the solutions is all certifications for tech. Certifications, 7 weeks to 7 months, we can fill these jobs. So putting programs in place to make that happen, number one. Number two, when you look at venture capital, less than 2% of venture capital money goes to women, less than 1% to women of color.
Yep.
Well, that's ridiculous. So we need to change the equation once again. So we're talking about solutions around that. How do we invest in women in technology? So we had a lot of really important conversations around that. And we started showcasing unbelievable innovations that are all, run by women.
Yeah.
And we know that women are remarkable when they're running companies. They actually outperform companies run by men.
Yeah.
We have the business case.
It's the right thing to do. It's also right economically. It's right for the world to move forward with this. It's something that's so interesting because if you were hosting these interviews and you had these conversations with every single person that came through the C Space Studio, and everyone here at CES would probably talk the talk, right? And someone saying, yes, I support women, more women in the workplace, I want to get more women involved in tech. So certainly, I suppose from a consciousness raising perspective, or at least people are saying the right things, what is the gap between what people say and what they do? Is it because they secretly don't want to do it, or is there something even more structural happening here?
Well, there's always bias, but most importantly, we need the accountability and measurement for change. And I think one of the most important imperatives is we need the CEOs to take action. We need the person in charge to be accountable. And that's where we really need to elevate the conversation, the top level.
Has there historically been kind of a buck passing situation where, I can't do anything about it because there aren't graduates coming from STEM programs and therefore it's the school's fault, and it kind of people passing the buck around?
Well, I think we've put a lot of the responsibility on the DE&I level, but if we don't elevate that conversation to the up to the CEO level and hold the CEO responsible, things aren't happening. We've been going backwards, and we are really at a turning point right now. Especially women of color, they're leaving. Microaggressions are at an all-time high, and they've just finally decided, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Women in senior levels are all leaving. And so unless we are going to do something right now, we are at a moment where it is time to put our money where our mouth is. And we need to change the course, the trajectory of where we are.
Do you feel like we've gone backwards even in the year that we've talked, since you and I have chatted?
Absolutely. We are at a real inflection point, and we need to absolutely put our money where our mouth is and create the actions that we want to see.
Are there regulatory or legal changes that you would like to see in terms of requiring a certain number of women to be on the board or in the C-suite, things like that?
I don't think we need quotas. I actually think that we need to just put some new systems in place, and that we will. Caregiving is a big issue, and I think that we are losing a lot of women to care. Mental health is a big issue. We need to also enforce flexibility. We're sort of wishy-washy on what that means.
Right.
And so I think that there's a few things that we can do. Pay gap is still a big problem. You know, women are 80 cents on the dollar, black women 64 cents on the dollar, Hispanic women 53 cents on the dollar. Like, why?
You mentioned that you had a big, before we started chatting here, you mentioned that you had a big walk around the CES floor with 350 women, I think it was. Tell me about what it means to walk the show floor with a group like that.
You know, it really is quite remarkable when you, I was at the opening keynote, and it was Lisa Su was the keynote speaker. She was quite remarkable, and it was an ocean of men. And so when we walked the floor with 350 women, of course we looked at some remarkable technology, but the most incredible thing was watching the faces of all the men as we walked the floor, and it was this wow factor. It was just so incredible, and you watched the faces of these men saying, where did all of you women come from? And I coined the phrase power of the pack. A woman alone has power, collectively we have impact. It was this whoosh moment. And you know, some men just kind of look in awe of where did you all come from, and then these other men, you saw them like cheering, like wow, and then some men just kind of bolted through the back, and it was quite remarkable. You know, looking at the big screens, the little screens, but for me, I always love watching the men's reactions.
So much of what needs to happen is at the systemic level, at the leadership level, and so you don't want to put everything on, you know, the level of the individual, but if you do offer advice, and I'm sure you do offer advice all the time to young women starting out in their careers right now, what kind of advice do you give to folks like that?
Go, you know, be brave and bold, and don't look back. You know, this is our moment to push forward, and I think that, you know, for CEOs and at every level, hire 3 so that you're not only and lonely. And I think this is how we change the equation and close the gap.
And 3, is that kind of a psychologically kind of a magic number, a magic threshold somehow?
3 at every level, because a lot of people are hiring, you know, 30%, but when you're hiring 1 at every level, you're still alone.
Yeah.
So I think we need the representation's reflection, and that's how we can really move forward. Because when you put the numbers at the top, then we hire more at every level. Yeah. And I think that it's sticky.
Have you thought about the implications for the metaverse, VR, situations where people can appear in bodies and forms other than the one that they were born with? And what that changes about the dynamic in terms of gender. What do you think about that?
Listen, I think the metaverse is wonderful. And one of the things that we love about Web3 is because it's in its early days, it's giving us a real opportunity for equality. And that's why for us, we are encouraging women to get in early so that we can write the rules and be there first. And that is just so important. Web 2, we were behind. Web 3, we could get ahead and write the rules of the road. And it's such an opportunity for inclusivity. So we are very bullish on this, and we are, you know, really encouraging all of our women. We have the largest community of women in the workplace. We have over 1 million women in 100 countries. We are pushing, educating women to get in early, get in often, and not be afraid. And you know, it is so early that it's not scary. Yeah. You know, everyone is learning. So let's all learn together.
Let's go. Shelley, I've asked this question to several people here in the C Space Studio, but because you are our last guest, it has special significance. CES, 2023 will be the year of blank. Fill in the blank.
2023 will be the year of adventure, the year of curiosity, the year of opportunity, the year of experimentation, and the year of equality.
Let's go. I really appreciate it. Shelley Zalis, thank you for rejoining us here in the C Space Studio of the Female Quotient. Thank you so much.
Let's go.
Let's go. And hey, thank you so much for watching us here in the C Space Studio, sponsored by Salesforce at CES 2023. This concludes the 2-day live stream of all 48 of the interviews that we have done with marketing, media, and branding leaders here in the C Space Studio. I have loved every minute of it. And I hope you've watched them all live, but just in case you haven't, they will eventually be available on demand, and you should be able to go back and watch those live streams as well on demand on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, whichever CES channel you prefer. I'd like to give Salesforce a special thank you for sponsoring this and making it possible here in the C Space Studio. Thank you to the crew at Kramer. Thanks to Juan for making sure the audio sounds good. Thank you for everyone else who put this on, and special thanks, of course, goes to the producers from the Consumer Technology Association itself who made this possible. Nicole Vidovich, our executive producer, additional production help from Mason Manuel, and others at the Consumer Technology Association. I hope I've thanked everyone and I haven't left anyone out. No one is frantically waving to me off camera that I missed anybody, so I'm going to assume that I did an okay job. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Keep it right here. Well, actually, I said keep it right here after the end of every other interview, but now I guess I better conclude it. You can catch me tomorrow, by the way, on the CES digital venue, but for now, I will conclude this broadcast of the C Space Studio. I'm James Kotecki. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you back in CES 2024.